All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning to Maida and Sally in the US. But we're so excited to have this final training with you all today. We're really grateful for you all for sending the lesson plans and the videos. Those of you who have done so already. It's been really great to review and watch the videos that you shared. So we want to just say thank you so much for that. And today we're gonna spend a little bit of time giving some feedback about the lessons that we received. But overall, yeah, we just want to say thank you. They were all really great. And it was good for us to see how you're all taking the lessons that we're sharing in these workshops. So let's see if it was to go. Here we go. So we just want to start again and remind everyone that before you make your lesson plan, before you start actually writing what you plan to do, you need to first read the book to understand what's happening, who are the characters, what is the setting. You can choose 5 to 6 vocabulary words. And also probably the most important part is to decide what the main message of the story is. So we talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago, excuse me. We talked about this 2 weeks ago, that the main message is really those key values and skills that we want to teach our students so that they can have better skills in their own life. So really, before you start making the lesson plan, we ask you to really read the story, understand the message, and this will help you in making your lesson plan. And because we want the students to really make sure they understand the lesson plan or the message, you need to know what the message is before, and then you can continue to repeat and reinforce the message throughout the read aloud. So now just to give some feedback for the vocabulary part. So just this was a note for teacher in the lesson plan. So you choose about 5 to 7 words. You can make a word card. So if you write the word on a piece of paper, you can draw a picture. These will help your students to see the words. And then also we talked a lot about creating actions. So have your students modeling what the word means. So if the word is drink, you can pretend to take a sip of water. And it's also important to use the word in a sentence. So I drink water to feel hydrated, if that was the word. So now getting into some feedback from what we saw. So many of you had your students say the words and do an action, and that is so good. We're so happy to see your students saying the words and doing an action. One little note, don't forget to also use the word in a sentence. This helps make the word more practical, and students can use it more frequently. And also one other thing, make sure that the students can just say the word and do the action all together. So we don't want to take too much time for each student to take a turn to say the word and do the action, and then the next student. So it's faster if the students just all say it together, and they can also just do the action at the same time. So the vocabulary should really only take a couple minutes to introduce the words, have them act it, and to use it in a sentence. So this is one example that we took from one of the lessons that we received. I'm not going to say whose it was. I also don't remember whose it was at the top of my head. But this is one of the lessons we received from you. So here you chose the vocabulary words. There's goat, dog, cow, friend, pay, money, and annoyed. So you have to, the teacher will say the word and the children repeat, and then the teacher will translate. And here there's actually 2 games I noticed. And And so we would say maybe just choose one activity or one vocabulary game so that it does not take too long. But I really like this first game is good practice. So students, they find the correct word. And I would just suggest that when you have the students touch the picture, also have them say it. So if the teacher says dog, one of the students will go touch the picture and have them say the word dog, because we want to make sure students are practicing. And then the second game here is a little acting race game, which was fun. So that's just a little bit about the vocabulary that we wanted to touch on. Overall, it's good for students to be practicing, but the vocabulary is just to get them excited about the book. So it should not take too long. Okay, so next moving into the bridge activity. So remember, this activity really starts to generate interest or pique each child's interest in the story. And this is the first time you can really introduce the main message. So for the story Best Friends, the story is all about friendship and kindness. So you can start asking them to think about maybe one of their own friends and why they like that friend. So it starts to get them thinking about the topic of the story. Okay, so for the bridge activity feedback, we were really pleased to see all of your questions that you asked in the bridge activity. So many of you asked your students to think of their previous experiences, which is awesome. So just make sure the question is connected to the main message of the book. But for example, here's one that someone submitted to us. So they asked students if someone disappointed them before, and they're wondering how they felt about that and how they solved it. So this is a good way for students to start thinking about maybe what the main theme or message of the story will be. And also just to add to, this is a good time to have students turn and talk with another friend or a partner about their answer. So these questions, you can add them, talk with a partner, and then some of them can share with the whole class. Okay, so let's pause here. So we've looked at the vocabulary and we've looked at the bridge activity. Are there any questions that came up as you were making your own lesson? Do you have any questions about the vocabulary or the bridge activity? Okay. Okay, well, hopefully if you're not asking questions, that means you feel good about that part of the lesson. So now really diving into reading the story. So this is definitely the most important part of a read aloud, is the actual reading of the story. And it's important to really read with expression and interest. You want students to be engaged in the story. And when students listen to the story and answer questions, this makes sure they understand the important values and message. Okay, so I'm really also excited overall, the questions that you shared in your lessons, the questions you asked during this part were really good. I liked how you all really asked a lot of questions while reading the story. And you had some good questions at the end. And then also your wondering questions were really nice. So we're gonna talk about these 3 types of questions while reading the story. But first, Sally would like to jump in once you.
There are some people that are sending WhatsApp saying they're having difficulty connecting. So can we remind everybody that this is recorded and that they can hear it all again?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So all of these trainings are recorded, so you can go back and listen if you need, if you were not able to hear clearly. So with that, okay, so like we were saying, so for the reading the story part, there's 3 types of questions that you can ask your students. So while you're reading, this is as you're turning the pages, you want to stop on a couple pages to ask students about what's happening. So ask them, well, who are the characters? What's the conflict so far? How do you think they're feeling? And also get students to start asking, what might they do? What might happen next? So these are not many questions, but as you turn the pages, maybe stop on a few pages where you feel like you want students to engage with the story. So this keeps them interested in listening throughout. So for example, this one was from, I think this is from Decision, the story Decision.
Yeah.
So on page 4, we pause and we ask them, what is the setting of the story? What is happening? And then we continue to read. And on page 9, we asked, what are some of the problems in the village? And what do you think will happen next? So having students answer a few of these will get them remembering as they go. And then on page 12, what did the father do? What do you think all the people will do? So this is just really getting them thinking and remembering as they are listening what is happening. And then once you've finished the story, you've said the end, the story's over, there are some end of story questions. So these really ask about how the conflict was solved. We want to think about the beginning, middle, and end of the story, and really start to think about, okay, well, how was the conflict solved? What was the main message? So this one's really important to ask students, what did you learn from this story? This is at the end, once you finish reading, you really want them to start thinking about, okay, now that we've finished reading, what have I learned? Okay, so these are the end of the story questions. And the final set of questions are the wondering questions. So these are the ones where there's no right or wrong answer. These are questions about sharing the students' feelings and their experiences. And there's no right or wrong. It's not about what happened in the story. So I added this example from one of you. I added this example from one of you who sent your lesson to me. And I really like these wondering questions that you chose. You asked, I wonder what part of the story you like and why. And I wonder if you saw yourself in the story. I wonder if you've ever been in situations similar. So this gets students really thinking about how this connects to them and how they can bring this message into their own life. Because I'm sure we can all connect in some way to all the books that we're reading. These messages are very big and universal, like forgiveness. We can all find something and connect to the value of forgiveness. So those are the different questions. So let's just go back again, just to make sure that it was clear. So you have questions while you're reading. This is on each page. You stop and you ask maybe 1 or 2 questions. And then at the end of the story, you start to ask them, okay, what did you learn? How is the problem solved? And then finally, in the wondering questions, you really start to get students to think about their own life and connect the message beyond the story. So this is really the big part when you're reading a story. These are the big questions that you want to be asking students. And again, I was so pleased with the questions that you all asked in your lesson plans that you shared with us. I really think you all really had a good idea of how to engage students with these questions and have students sharing. Before we move on, because I know the questions can be a lot. Is there any confusion, or does anyone want to ask questions about reading the story? The main part. Does everyone feel clear on these 3 types of questions that we have? Okay. We have just one more part. Yeah, go ahead, Maida.
I would like to emphasize
Go ahead, Maida.
I would like to emphasize that the questions while you're reading keep the children thinking and accountable. If they know that you're going to be asking questions as you go through the book, then they know that they will be accountable for paying attention. You know, not in a threatening way or anything like that, but it keeps children accountable. And then at the end of the story, we ask them the big point of the story. And students need to be paying attention as we read in order to have understood the story, to be able to answer, what did you learn from the story? So the steps all connect. And then the wondering questions enable students, as we've said, to connect the meaning to their own lives, which is the big theme of our project. Using good social skills in our lives.
Thank you, Maida. Okay, so just for the last part, to give a little bit of feedback. So the processing activity. So this is after you've read the story, after you've asked some wondering questions. We'd like to have one more final activity that gets students doing something different. So we've asked a lot of questions, but now in this part, we really want students maybe moving or writing or creating new parts of the story. So for this one, for the big feedback is just remember that we're not asking students more questions at this point. So we've already asked many questions while we were reading the story, and we've done the wondering questions. And this last activity is supposed to be, it's just something fun to have students continue thinking about the story in a new way. So the activity should have students act, create, write, draw. So some ideas here are doing a role play. So some of you showed a role play in your videos that you shared with us, but having students act out the story. If the story is best friend, maybe I pretend to be the student who climbs up into the tree, and then Maida's my best friend and she comes to help bring me down. But having students act it out. Or you can have them rewrite the ending or create a new ending. So they've read the story, and then instead of the way the story actually ends, they can create something different. Or you can have them do a writing or drawing activity. So this was one example. I hope you're able to see it. This is one example we received where the teacher asked the students to do a pair share. So we love a good pair share where students can talk to each other and to think about what should happen next and maybe rewrite the story. And then when they've all talked about it with their partner, they can come back and share with everyone. So I really like in this activity that someone had their students working in pairs. And the only suggestion I would make is that they only rewrite the ending of a story. If you want them to rewrite the whole story, that will take a long time, which is fine, but you would need a whole class just to rewrite the story. So for this short activity that we do at the end, you can just have them rewrite maybe the last page of the story and think of a new ending. But this is a great way for students to talk to each other. And yeah, again, I'm sorry, I don't remember who, maybe Alphonse was the one who shared this one, but I really do like this processing activity at the end. All right, so I'm gonna stop there for now. And I wanna check, because that was a lot of talking. I want to hear from you all. Maybe you could share, what did you enjoy from the process of making a lesson plan? What was difficult for you when you were making it? But think about when you were making your lesson plan, how did it go? What was the experience like?
So one group chose a book that we had not provided a lesson plan for. We're not going to mention names, but would that group like tell us how they were able to make the lesson plan? Was it easy? Was the group process helpful? Were they able to use some of the examples that we had provided?
Hello.
Hello, Esther.
Hello, Esther.
Okay. Can I share with you how it was when we are in group?
Please do. Please do.
Okay. For us, when we were in group, it was good time for everyone to share, especially about experiences among the children. Was happy, but it was somehow difficult about the games, about some new activities for them. It was like new ways to catch some words, to catch something. That's especially on processing activity. Some children, they don't know how to write in English very well, like to take summary of some part of the story. So it was not easy, but it was so good and interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther.
Thank you, Esther. Yeah, I think you can also think if writing is difficult. I know some people have students whose English is really advanced, but if your students' English is not good, if they can't write yet, you can also, for the processing activity, you can have them draw if you give them a prompt and you want them to think about the beginning, middle, end. You can have them draw what happens in each part of the story. Or you can just have them talk rather than writing. So there's other ways, and we have a list of suggestions that I'll share again with you that you can look at.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing how it went for your group.
So I'm going to ask Esther, sorry, I'll just follow up, Sally. So Esther, did you put out one of the models when you wrote your new original lesson plan?
Yeah.
Good.
Sorry?
What
Come
do you, yeah,
again?
maybe you can describe what you mean by models, what models
Okay.
term?
We gave example from
Yes.
the books that we had taught with. But I believe it's your group. You wrote a lesson for a different book, which is what is terrific. Was the example helpful?
Yeah, it was so helpful.
So you could follow the steps in the example
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
apply. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Sally, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, I taught for a very long time, and I want to encourage you all not to become discouraged. It takes practice. And when we started, meaning the group of us, I went back and looked at the lesson plans, and I was very glad to have the models, but it still takes a lot of thinking, particularly when you start a book that you don't know. So please, don't get discouraged. It will come, it gets easier, but it's a new way of doing things, and it is a challenge. And just as you challenge your children, your students, we have challenged you.
Is there any other group who would like to share what the experience was like making a lesson plan? I know I've received lessons from Alphonse's group, John Demore's group, Consolee's group, Noella's group. Do one of you maybe want to share? Yeah, Noella, go ahead. Noella, would you like to share?
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
That's okay.
For us, it is a very good experience for my children. So the problem is English. Many of students here at Goma, we use French and Kiswahili. So I try to read in English, and the student practice in French or Kiswahili to help them to understand very well the words. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Noella, because it's another point that many of you have talked about before. And I think it's great if you read in English once and then you read it again in a different language. I think that's totally fine.
Thank you.
But the most important thing, and you can do this in any language, we just really want to make sure students understand the message. And if they don't
Yes.
understand it in English, then it's okay to emphasize it in a language that they understand so that they can still take that message with them beyond the classroom. So that's really important. Yeah, Maida.
And Noella, I would emphasize that learning English is helped when you use the language that they already know. The research tells us that's a good, productive, effective thing to do. So we are encouraging using the languages they know to practice and learn English. Noella, if you have questions about that, feel free to email us. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Noella. Would anyone else like to
Yeah,
share?
if you can help us.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if you can help us to have some books in French and Swahili, it will be better for us.
Yeah, we have to check, Maida. I know many of the books have Kenya Rwanda, but I think we can probably also get versions in French and Kiswahili. We have to check.
Yeah, and Noella, if that is from you again, we'll be in email touch with you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll share that, Noella. Thank you for raising that suggestion.
Thank you.
Great. Would anyone other group like to share about their experience making the lesson plan?
I'd love to, yeah, John Moore, please go ahead.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. I want to share experience about the lesson plan. Our lesson plan was being in some school around our libraries. So it's very important to choose some students from that children around our library because it interested about the system for read aloud. So in the reading book, some children being happy to see what next the page or to curiosity about the story because of before reading the book can showing the pictures and ask some question about what did you see. So it's very good to children. So the problem we meet is the children come because is around of school, the children is many, but to make a group is not easy because all children need to come together with others children. So I hope we can try to use that method of read aloud until when we get experience about to do well. That's thank you.
Thank you. So it was great to hear John Namor talking about how the students were so curious to really hear more about the story. And you said you were telling them, you were showing them the cover and asking them what they see and getting them to think about what will happen next. And then your students were so curious to read more and find out. That's really great to hear that your students enjoyed that process. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Hello. Oui, I am Alphonse.
Yeah, go ahead, Alphonse. We can hear you.
I want to speak about the lesson plan we have made. Then it was helpful for us for this method of read aloud, because before making the lesson plan, we have to read the whole story. Then we found out some difficult words. Then I used the dictionary to get meaning. I also, I am like a student because I have to study first the story, secondary, and make the lesson plan. Then after found out the vocabularies, I go through the method you use in read aloud. Then I found this method is very helpful for us, as we use usually Kinyarwanda language, but also when I read this book, it reminds me some vocabularies and so on. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I like how you shared that we are also students. We have to read the book first and we have to do our own homework in order to make a good lesson plan for our students. That was a good way of describing it. We're also students. Thank you, Alphonse.
Hello.
Hi, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, let me say something also. Incidentally, I'm sorry for us, we just sent our lesson plan a little bit late because ours, I think, has just arrived.
That's okay. Yeah.
It caught us in the middle of the exams. We've
Yes,
been doing it
yeah.
along.
We understand. Yeah.
We've done the last paper today, so we have to squeeze time at least and do something also. But we also met some challenges as we were doing a lesson plan, because most of these learners of ours, or the students, they are taking English as a second language.
Mhm.
So basically, when you're reading through, almost every word appeared new to them. So we took a lot of effort and time to try to explain most of those words. More especially, like for us, we did on the book titled Atenos Friend. That's the book we read about, and that's where we actually carried out or did our lesson plan from. So basically, in most cases, when we're talking about most of these words, they almost appear to be new to these learners. And it costed us a lot of time as we are trying to explain most of them because they seem to be new vocabularies.
What book was that, please?
Pardon?
Please give me the title of that book.
Atenos Friend. Atenos Friend.
Tina's friend. I don't think we know that one.
Yeah.
Really? Because they gave us in the library. They gave us a number of books, then we chose that one.
Yeah, we don't know all the ones off the top of our head because we have many books.
Please, would you write the name of the book in the chat, please?
It's there. We wrote the title.
Yeah.
And
I can find it, Mida.
Okay, you can find it. Okay. I can't hear it. And another point we want to make is that many of these books are available in multiple languages. So we will make a better point of emphasizing that.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you raise a good point that, I mean, all of the words are going to be likely new, which is okay, but that's why it's so important for the teacher to really, you know, use the pictures, read with expression and interest to help students try to understand what is happening. And then when you read it again in the language that the students know as their first language, then hopefully they'll start to make the connections between what they read in English and they'll be like, oh yeah, I did know what was happening. And so they can make those connections when you read it in English and then read it again in their first language.
And we will follow up by email with you on that issue.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing though about how that
Thank you
went.
for sharing. That's the
Yeah.
only way we know to make what we're trying to do work for you on the other side of the world, you know? You got the name of the book. You were able to hear it, Shauna.
Well, I was going to share, I think if you had just sent the lesson plan, I don't know if, I think you sent just the blank template. So you might need to send again the one that you actually made. Because I didn't see anything filled out in the template or in the one that was shared with me recently.
Really? It has
Yeah,
just come
so-
a few minutes ago.
Yeah, so maybe if you want to share it again.
Can he take a picture with his phone and send you pictures?
Or let's see, maybe it's this one.
Dama.
Yeah.
Maybe it's this one. Yeah, maybe if you could send it again, because I think the one that was sent was the blank template that I had shared with everybody.
There's a hand up, Shauna.
Yeah. Okay. Bridget, would you like to share? Bridget or Felician, would you like to share? If you can hear us. Maybe they stepped away for a minute.
All right.
Bridget or Felician, if you can hear us, you have your hand up if you had something to share. If not, Albert wrote something in the chat that I think is really interesting. They asked if for one of the processing activities, if they could take their students out, and please correct me, Albert, if I'm wrong, but what I understand from this is if you can take your students outside of the classroom and actually show them the words around where they live and around the school. I think that would be a really fun processing activity. It's like almost like a scavenger hunt, right? Like ask the students, can you find a dog, or can you find a cow, or where do you see these things in your real life? I think that's a really great way of explaining, of doing a processing activity at the end, is taking your students outside into the neighborhood around them, if it's possible to do that.
Also, if there are things in your classroom space that you can label in your first the language of the children and also the English equivalent, like window, if it's appropriate, but that also helps them see, and the words in the language they know and the English that they are working so hard to learn.
And then Maida, if you can see, Francine put the name of the book in the
Thank you,
chat box.
thank you, yeah, yeah.
Would anyone else like to share how it went making the lesson plan? Or if you want to share how it was actually teaching with your students using the read aloud in your classroom?
I would really love to hear some answers for that one. Because we really respect how much effort that people devoted to the assignment.
And I know some of you have not been able to practice yet because of exams, but hopefully you'll be able to in the coming days. Marie Paul, did you want to share something?
Yes, I want to share something about the lesson plan.
Okay.
I was practiced to do lesson plan to the book called Chicken and the Mary Pie.
Yeah, chicken
And
and
when I do
millipede.
it, I try to do, but I found for 2 questions or too difficult. The first one, when I go to the end, sorry? Hello? Do you hear?
Go ahead. Yes, we hear you.
Hello?
We hear you.
Hello?
We hear you,
Okay.
Marie Paul. You can continue.
Yes, please. When I go to the end, yeah. When I read to the end, I found questions because I found there is no good example from chicken, even me prepared. All those they have a bad attitude or bad character. And I say, when you teach the children, how can you explain about all those things you are teaching them, they have bad things? But I was trying myself to say, in life, you can even not find the things, the good reason to every person. And you can do yourself the good because all people, they are not good. I don't know if it is correct or not.
I mean, I think it's good if your students are not sure at the end of the story, they don't feel clear about the message. I think it's a good idea to make connection to their real life and provide an example. So I think that was a good strategy that you use to help explain to your students in a different way that, sometimes there are people who come into our life who maybe do things, and you can provide an example. Like maybe if it's sometimes your friend will, I don't know. I've never read Chicken and Millipede, so I don't know what happens in the story. But if there's an example you can think of about relationships with friends or with family, that would help explain the story as well. So I think that's a good idea. But also that's something you can think about before you make the lesson plan as well. When you read through the story one time, you can think about, okay, what's the message? what examples can I prepare before to tell students? You can prepare that in advance as well. Or if you feel like maybe the book is not a good example, you can choose a different book that has a similar message to teach the next time. Yeah, Maida, unmute, please, Maida.
And I want to emphasize what Shauna said, that we ourselves need to be clear what the message is and to be in our questions to be leading toward that. So for that book, I see that actions have consequences, and sometimes they can be, the consequences can be worked out, but sometimes they cannot. So having an example from your own life that connects to the message is very important. Also, this is a new learning. This is a new way of asking the children to think. So it's okay. It really is okay for it to take some time for the children to be able to get the point or message of the story. So that's why the example that Shauna put up, where it was about friendships, I think, have you ever been disappointed and what did you do? You know, where you're asking them as you go through the book, some questions that will help them be able to answer what was the point of the story. Again, it takes practice. But I loved that you shared with us.
Yeah, it looks like Marie Paul actually got disconnected, but I think she heard the first part of it. I don't know when she dropped off.
But
But
can
yeah,
the practice
yeah,
it takes, and the teacher also has to be very clear. Your question, Shauna, ask them, what is the message I'm hoping the children to get? That was in the first line of your presentation today.
yeah. Esther, did you have you want to say something?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I want to ask some question about my lesson plan. Yeah, the storybook, our storybook was goat, dog, and cow. When we are setting main message, I just put the forgiveness. Yeah, for me, when I read the book about the book, let me talk about some summary of the book. When the goat has supposed to pay the money for driver, she ran away without paying. And then driver got annoyed and get anger. And then he took the money from dog. When he's supposed to give him his change, he also decided to go away without giving him his change. So for me, I was just telling myself, the driver could forgive the goat instead of punishing dog in the shame of God. For the children, they are asking themselves, how comes can I forgive someone who is not approaching me and ask for forgiveness? For me, I said and I told them, sometimes we don't need to wait for people to come and approach us and ask for forgiveness, but also sometimes we need to forgive people, even not they are not coming and ask forgiveness. I don't know if I was right or wrong, but I can ask if the forgiveness is there necessary.
Yeah, I've not read that story, but I mean, it sounds like that is a big part of it. Another thing I would encourage for that story is thinking about maybe what else could the driver have done, because he was originally wronged by the goat. So rather than doing something, stealing from dog, you can have the students, well, what else could the driver have done? Could he have somehow tried to find goat and ask for him to pay? You know, you could also have them think about other solutions rather than just forgiveness, because goat did, or yeah, the driver did lose his money. So he, what else could be done rather than just forgiveness? But
Okay, thank you.
I think it's still great that you were able to make that connection for students and really explain that important value to them. I think that's really important. Forgiveness is hard for all of us and for kids. So
I would like to just emphasize Shauna's point, Esther. Okay, and for all of us.
yeah.
And
Thank you,
so-
Esther.
Yes.
Um,
And that is a good one to generalize into your own life. And,
Yeah.
Being forgiving, and then in some of the stories it goes to making amends. How can you make up for the damage done?
We're getting close to the end of our hour. Does anyone have any other questions about how to make a lesson plan or anything that happened while you were teaching? Sadly, this is our last session. So if you have any final questions, we would love to hear them now. Otherwise, you can send me a message in WhatsApp if you have questions. There's two final things I was going to share before we close. So at the end of this, since this will be our final training, over the weeks, I've sent you many links and resources, but today after the session, I will share a resource pack. So I have one folder with all the resources that I've shared. So within this pack, you will find the completed lesson plans that I have made. You will find the how-to guide with how to teach the beginning of a lesson, the middle of a lesson, and the end of a lesson. You will also find many activity ideas. So all the vocabulary activities and processing activities. We've made a list of many different ideas that you can look at and use in your own classroom. And we also, I've also put the training videos from here. So you can also go back and see the training videos. So everything is in this one resource pack. So I hope you keep that with you and you go back to it as many times as you need and really just keep refreshing your memory and practicing with all of these resources that we have for you. And finally, for those who have sent us a video of you practicing in a classroom with your students, you will be receiving a certificate of completion. So we will only send it to those we receive a video from. So I know some of you are not able to do your video yet because of exams, and maybe some of you just haven't been able to do it yet, but in the coming days, within the next week, if you send us a video clip of you teaching the Read Aloud lesson to your students, we will provide you with a certificate of completion. So for those of you who have already sent videos to us, you will be receiving that soon. And one other important part about this certificate, you made lesson plans in groups. So many of you had 3 or 4 people where you made one lesson plan all together. But we still expect each of you, every individual person, to teach the Read Aloud lesson with their students. Okay, and it's okay if it's the same lesson as another teacher. But unless we receive a video clip of you teaching this to your students, then we will be able to give you this certificate. Yes, Sally.
When you send your video clip, please identify who is sending it. And also, if you could give us a little bit of information about the children you shared it with, maybe their ages, where the video took place. Was it in a library? Was it in a classroom? Just some information, because it helps us when we looked at the video to know what books are really successful and with which ages, so that we can share a list also of the books used. And if there's a particular age that the book was really successful with, that helps other teachers. Shauna, I'll put that list together when you get it, since I was the one that spoke up.
Okay, thank you. So I hope that's clear about the next steps. We'll send the resource pack, and then we also will be sending each of you a certificate if you have sent us a video. So if you have not sent a video yet, please do that as soon as you can within the next week. Take a short video. It doesn't have to be long. It could be just 2 minutes of you doing the read aloud with your students. And then we will follow up with a certificate.
And we would like you to, those who will be submitting, to focus on the story itself. Asking questions throughout the storybook, or asking questions at the end, or when you're doing the wondering questions. That would be very helpful for us. The questioning parts of the story. During the reading, the end of the reading, and the wondering questions.
All right, so yeah, this is the last training. This is the end, but we thank you all for your participation. We thank you so much for sending us the lessons and for sending us some of the videos. We really appreciate your hard work. And with that, we're gonna close. If you have any other questions that come up, you can message me on WhatsApp or in our group, and you can ask a question. But I hope you all take care. Yes, Sally?
Can you get a screenshot of all the people that participated here, or not?
We have, not many people have their camera on, but from the first session, the earlier ones, I can take a picture from the video that we have.
Okay, and any, like maybe just a screenshot of all the names. That's pretty exciting.
Sure.
Because we have 2 screens.
It's only 25 today. Other days we were 34, you know?
I know.
Yeah.
There are
Well, I
people.
took a little screenshot now with all the names, so we have it. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Please keep sending us. Please keep sending us your videos.
No, if you've already sent a video, no need for another one.
Yeah. If you've already sent it, I don't need another one. So thank you.
There's a question.
Yeah, we just answered it.
Sorry.
That's okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. It was wonderful to work with you in this training series. Thank you so much.
It was utterly wonderful to see the videos.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Take
much.
care.
so
Have a
many
good
of
day.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Whatever.
Thank you.